Okay, my computer says we are right on at noon, so we'll get started. I want to say good afternoon and welcome to everyone to the second of AgSafe Alberta's three-part speaker series. We're providing you with some great information and tools to develop the safety culture on your farm, getting ready as we head into another growing season, hopefully warmer days ahead. For anyone not familiar with AgSafe Alberta, we are the Health and Safety Association for farmers and ranchers in the province, and we're here to support you with information, tools, and training to grow the culture of safety on your farm. My name is Jody Walkwich, and I'm the Executive Director for AgSafe Alberta, and it's my privilege to introduce you to our speaker, Alan Quilley, today, and he told me that he would take care of further introductions, so I will turn it over to you, Alan.
Well, great, Jody. Thanks for having me. This is an important topic, and I'm glad to have joined you. And welcome, everyone. I think we should get started. Let's just get started. And this is a very important subject, particularly for farmers and ranchers, because I think this is true of a lot of industries, but no more so than the agricultural industry, where our families are involved. In my experience, I've worked at places where my family was involved, and that makes it just that much more personal. So I think today, in our hour together, I'd really like to talk about not so much about the legislation, even though we'll be talking about legislation and what we have to do, but it's not have to do when it becomes personal, and when safety at work, at our work, becomes personal. We can take a different attitude towards it. We can take a different approach. And that's what I really would like to talk about today, is that yes, there's regulations. And those regulations are making us do some things that maybe we want to do, maybe we don't want to do. But the bottom line is we're doing it for ourselves, not for the government. And when you take that attitude, it makes a difference. So that's the approach today. And I'd like to move forward. So let's start with the big picture, because Canada has some issues around health and safety. And it's not only our agricultural industry. So let's start. So let's most definitely make safety personal, because it is. First, we're going to take a look at the big picture. We're going to injure 712 people today. In an hour, that's 60. And we suffer a lot of time off. A lot of people sitting at home repairing from the injuries that they've gotten. And we have an incredible amount of deaths. Almost 1,000 a year, 79 a month. I mean, 2 are going to die today. And those people are no different than you and me. Just getting up in the morning, going to work, or they're suffering from a long-term illness that's going to kill them today. And they're all connected. They all have families. They all have sisters and brothers, mothers, fathers. And the disturbing part about all of these statistics is I haven't had to change those statistics in the last 10 years. Let's try to do something different. Now, when we look at who's getting killed, this is just the fatalities. You can see that we're hurting minors, we're hurting females, we're hurting males. No one's immune. And when you look at the last several years, that's a pretty stagnant average. We've seen some improvement, and hopefully we'll see more. Not only do we know how people are getting killed, or that they're getting killed and who they are, we know the kinds of injuries that farmers and ranchers are feeling. And I'm going to guess, and I don't have a long history in being a farmer, obviously, but I think if our participants think about this, these are the kinds of stories you've heard for many decades. These are the kinds of injuries that people get involved with in our farms. So we have a lot of knowledge about what we need to attack. And I think we should attack it. I think we should look at these things as challenges and say, how do we make these go away? And I think for the most part, if we gather the right participants around, we do know uh, who's being hurt. Just a little bit about me. I've been around for a while, and I purposely am a little different, and I do that on purpose. So let's give you an introduction. I'm a musician. I'm often seen as looking like Jerry Garcia. I'm not Jerry Garcia. The reason I grow my hair is not to be Dumbledore. It's actually I like being Santa Claus. And so this year, when Christmas is over, I didn't see any reason because of COVID to cut my hair, because I donated to the cancer folks who make wigs out of it. So that's me. I've been in the business for a long time. I started my business anyway. I loaded railway cars as a living, and I was a union member and one of the first OHS officers in the province of Alberta. And it was my job early in those days to get people to think about safety differently. I've worked for some of the largest employers in Canada, City of Edmonton, City of Calgary, CN, Capital Health. And all in that time, I was educating people through the universities of Alberta and Calgary, through NATE. And now I'm working with Lambton College in Sarnia. I'm a husband, a father, grandfather, a brother, a son. I play music for a living, and I have a lot of people that I'm responsible for and responsible to. And when I think about safety, I don't think about doing it for the government. So let's ask about safety. Let's learn about safety. Let's ask some really important questions. I think most importantly, we should also have fun at this. So why do we work safely? Do we do it for the government? You know, if the government changes, do you change your attitude towards safety? I would hope not. I hope that government isn't driving your passion for safety. And I certainly hope if you're not the owner of the farm, but you're working on the farm or the ranch, that you're not doing it for the company. I hope that you're not getting up in the morning and rah, rah, I got to do it for the company. I hope you're doing it for you and your family. You know, we all have family. We all have connections. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking about the government. I got to tell you, I'm thinking about my family. So when you start thinking about safety, and the next thing you have to do, you look at that thing that's coming at you. It says, oh, I'm an employer now, and the government says I have to do these things. We step back and we realize that when we're doing those things and trying to make it better, we're not trying to make it better for the government. We are making it better so we get to see our family grow up. So I work with a lot of clients, and I always find it amusing when someone tells me that they follow different rules on the weekend when nobody's watching. And that clearly is the kind of work that most farmers do, most farmers and ranchers do. We work alone a lot or in small groups. And I find it interesting that we would change the fact we'd wear a hard hat because the boss was around. Oh my God, there's some, and I've actually seen people do this when I was a government worker and I would arrive at a work site to do a workplace inspection, and people would run for their hard hats. Like, why would anyone do that? I mean, if you think you need to wear a hard hat, and you should wear a hard hat where there's something going to hit you on the head, that makes sense. And if you've evaluated it and said, gee, there's a head injury issue here, that you'd wear the hard hat for you and your family and not worry about whether the government cares about your hard hat or not. I always find it amusing. And you know, if you're the one on the farm that's providing leadership to others, where you have workers, um, remember that what you do speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say. So if you're going to make a difference, if you're going to make this personal, you're going to have to do the work that you're asked others to do. It's not good to be a leader that doesn't follow their own rules. So if you're going to ask people to protect themselves, whatever that protection might be, whatever that duty might be, make sure that you understand that people are watching you, and it matters what you do. It matters a lot. So if you're going to be a leader, lead. So what is working safely? You know, working safely in some cases is following the rules because we got good rules. And maybe we have rules that maybe need to be adjusted, and we're working on those. I think that's a lot of the work that Jody's trying to do now is to develop what is this thing, this AgSafe? How do we help people? We're thinking about what those rules are, and they will be revealed to us over time. But it's not just following the rules, you know, because you can follow rules and still get hurt. Recently, I was in a car accident. I was at a red light at a intersection. I was the first car stopped at the intersection, and a fellow in a big truck hit me so hard I had to get a new car. So I was perfectly following the rules and still got hurt. So it's not just following the rules. Working safety isn't just avoiding injuries either, being a good ducker. There's lots of examples where we just get away with it. You know, you just pull your hands out just in time, not to have caught them in a moving thing. You've done something where you just ducked out of the way just in time. And that's not safe just because you didn't get hurt. So some of the things we do to measure safety, we measure injuries, but that's not the whole story. There's lots of things going on where we're working unsafely, where we're endangering ourselves, and we're not feeling the repercussions because we were lucky. It wasn't because we were smart. So let's turn that around. Let's really think about working safely is not just getting out of the way. It is really doing it safely so we're not exposed to that energy that could hurt us. So it's not doing your work without, or for me, working safely is doing your work without taking unnecessary risks. Now here's a fellow who may have woken up this morning, even in Alberta, and he can't get in his car. He's going to figure it out. That's one of my favorite commercials. You know, I hope nobody's actually trying to do this, but you can see that there's a better way. You can see there's a better way. I mean, the whole commercial is about a better way. Having a car started so you don't have to worry about frozen logs. And there are other ways, obviously. Graphite in the lock. There are many solutions to this. The problem is we need to think about the solutions during a calm time, not when we're stuck, and pun intended. Um, you know, there was a time to think about this, and it wasn't after your car was frozen. You know, the whole commercial is about get the car with the car start, and then you won't have to worry about this. Well, now's the time to think about this. We're in a nice calm situation. Let's think about how we can make our places safer. Because these aren't pictures I took, but I could have easily taken them. Walking, you know, into a work site and seeing people taking terrible risks. These are terrible risks. These are killer situations where you could die in minutes, in seconds. And here we are taking those terrible risks for why? Why? We know better than this. We know that trenches cave in. We know people fall from heights without fall protection, without proper platforms. So why would we take that risk? Why would we expose ourselves and our loved ones to this? There's again millions of these things where humans are taking risks that they just don't have to. There are better ways to do this work. And some of these, they even look funny. They're so odd. You're gonna hang out a window. You're gonna stack pails. We can't afford a ladder. Of course we can afford a ladder. Of course we can do this properly. Here's a guy's going to cut a tree. I mean, my goodness. And that event hardly ever shows up on any statistic anywhere. So we're trying to figure out how safe the agricultural industry is. We can't just rely on counting injuries. We have to really pay attention to what's actually going on. Now, I know we've all taken risks and we're all human. And that's really what we're trying to talk about, that there are ways to change our behaviors so that we don't take these terrible risks. I think we can all think of a time we stood on a chair when we shouldn't have, or we've used the wrong tool, or we've maybe even undermined a safety lock on something, an integrated safety lock. So let's think about that. And there's some incredible things that people do. This is one I got in an email. I think he's trying to change the alarm on a smoke alarm that's probably going off and annoying him. I'm not sure how he got up there, but he looks like a pretty fit guy and probably had some help from the cameraman. But how about these two guys? This is one of my favorite pictures. There's only one hard hat, and I think they give it to the wrong guy. Anyway, all of these people are just trying to get their jobs done, but they're taking unnecessary risks. There's better ways to do this work, and we all know them. We just have to take it personally and make those happen. So if the lack of injury doesn't mean we're safe, what does? Well, it's creating safety. We should be able to see the creation of safety by what we do and the situations we set ourselves up for. That's how you can tell it's safe. I was once told, I was doing a presentation for a very large group of people, and I'd mentioned I thought jumping out of an airplane was a really unsafe thing to do. And, after the presentation, someone came up to me and said, Al, you can jump out of an airplane safely. I said, well, okay, I'll play along. Tell me how you do that. Well, they described taking a course. And I bought into that. Of course, you should know how to jump out of an airplane if you're going to do it. The first way to do it safely is know the features of how do you do it, how do people who have done it correctly do it. And he said, well, I went to a class. I went to a place where they taught me. And they taught me how to pack my chute, and they taught me how to land and steer. And while he was describing this, I was taking it all in. And I asked him, so how many jumps do you have to make before you pass the course? And he said, all of them. And all of a sudden, safety made sense to me. Of course, you have to do them all. And the diligence in which you have to do jumping out of an airplane is the kind of diligence we should pay for everything. You don't let your second cousin, who may be holding the rights to your will, you don't let him pack your chute. You pack it. And you don't let people do things to your chute that you wouldn't do. You make sure it's right. You make sure you have the secondary chute. You're not going to say, oh, I'm so busy today, I think I'll leave my secondary chute alone. You don't do those things. You do them right all the time. And I think that's what I'm really wanting uh, you to think about today. Are we doing our work right all the time? Or are we taking shortcuts? And I can tell you the fatalities that I've been involved in, that I've investigated, have all been affected by that key fact that we didn't do it right. We didn't do it the way we know how to do it. So that's one of the ways to be safe is decide how you do it. And we're going to get some help from the government, hopefully, as we develop our new safety rules. What is the way we should do our work? And then we need to get diligent about that work. So just to test, and I'm usually doing this live so I can see people raising their hands, but we'll just assume that you folks are all guilty of this. Have you ever used a knife as a screwdriver in your kitchen? Is a question I'd like to ask. And I'm going to guess the answer is yes. And if you want to understand why did you do that? You'll probably come up with the same answer that most people have done. Is why do you think that is? Perhaps there's one thing you could do today. You could just do this. You don't need a special permission. You don't need a regulation. You don't need anything to make you safer in your kitchen other than a commitment to do this thing. What is the thing that you could do that would almost guarantee that you never use a knife as a screwdriver in your kitchen? Well, that would be put one in your kitchen, wouldn't it? This is actually out of my kitchen. I have more than screwdrivers, by the way, but that is right out of my kitchen because I'm a human and I know that I'm lazy and I know my screwdrivers in the garage aren't going to magically come into my kitchen, especially if I just have a one screw to tighten. And what typically will happen with a child or my grandchildren, so I walk in and say, Granddad, can you change the battery? I say, sure. And then I look around and what do I see? That will take that little tiny screw out of that battery compartment. And if I don't have a screwdriver, I'm not a clever enough human to make it up. Just like that poor guy that was peeing on the lock. He's stuck. Now what am I going to do? Oh, I just got to do. I'm not going out to the garage to get that. I have a knife. And it's typically the sharpest knife in the drawer, right? So think about that. That's a very simple example. Where in your work can you make it simpler to be safe? That makes it more likely to be safe? Is there a tool you could put close by? Is there something you can adjust? This is what makes it safe. It's not rules and regulations. It's people doing things, thinking about how do I make it safe so I don't expose myself to harmful energy. Oh, it's my time. So typically when I'm working with large clients, and you can do this yourself, you don't need to be part of a large organization. You can think about the things you could stop doing that you're doing right now that maybe it's not safe. Maybe you're standing on something you shouldn't. Maybe you're not getting the ladder. Maybe you're not keeping the key in your pocket when you work on machinery. Maybe you're not locking out as best you can. I want you to think about that. I want you to write that down and make a commitment to fix that. Now, there may be some things you need to start doing. A good example is get a screwdriver for your kitchen and maybe one on your tractor. You know, that's not, my toolkit isn't really where it is. It's in the back of my truck. And am I going to use that or am I going to go find that? I had one farmer tell me, why don't you use a rock? Yeah, that's a good idea. Use a rock instead of have a hammer. That would be a good choice. And you know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. So maybe it's do that. Maybe it's make sure the tool is close by. Now, I'm hoping, I trust that you're already doing a lot of things that are safe. You're already making it safe. So that commitment to doing it not just some of the time, but all the time get really committed to being diligent about that. I think that's going to matter. It's going to matter a lot. It's going to matter a lot to the outcomes. If we could get every farmer and rancher in Alberta to really get diligent about this, we will change those numbers. Children won't be hurt. We won't get hurt. We won't be killing people. But it's going to take that kind of work. It's going to take that kind of diligence. You can't wish and hope this into existence. You have to do the work. And that work is thinking about what are those energies that we don't want to get involved with, and how do we solve those problems? So let's make it safe. Let's make it personal. At the end of this day, where we're taking time to think about safety, we should have a list of things you're going to do tomorrow morning. And you might not get them all done tomorrow morning, don't get me wrong, but you're going to start to make it personal. I love this. The first thing you got to do is recognize that there's a problem. So say what's that mountain goat doing way up here in this clouds? I mean, clearly they don't see the hazard. So we start with a hazard. Where are the hazards? And the best way to think about hazards is energy. There's a lot of energy on farms, lots, and it's big energy. No different than when I was working in the railroad, no different than people working in construction and oil and gas. There are big killer energies, and that's where you start. Where are the energies that if they hit me, they would hit me hard and they would hurt me badly? So start with the energy source, find out which way it would come at me, what was the pathway, and protect myself somehow. Now, there's many ways to use this model. One is remove the energy source. If you can, shut it off. If you can, lock it out. If you can, remove it. Sorry. The next thing is think about the pathway. Am I standing in the way of the energy? If it released, would it release into me? If so, I got to get out of there. I either have to barrier myself or I have to get out of there. I can't let the pathway of that energy hit me. And then finally, it's me. Protect the person thing. It's not always people that are going to get hurt. It can hurt machinery. Lots of situations where machinery gets damaged in accidents. So think about the energy. How is it going to hit me? And how do I protect it? Now, there's a couple of ways. Remove the energy, lengthen the path, get so far away from the thing that it couldn't hurt you, and remove you, get you out of there. Now, if that's not possible, and lots of work we do, it's not possible, we have chances to put barriers in place. Now, barriers can be physical. They can be, physical roadblocks. You can mark areas off and say, don't go in here. They can be a physical thing, or they can be just knowledge. Telling people, we make us, we're going to talk a little bit about this a little later, but talk about common sense. There's no such thing as a common sense. We're not born to be farmers. We're born to learn, and there's common knowledge. And that's what the barrier is right there, common knowledge. Maybe you know something that the person you're working with doesn't, and you can share that. You can share that knowledge, and that knowledge in effect is making it safer. I still remember people who have taught me important lessons. Harry Anderson was the guy who taught me as a young fellow. I was working underneath a railway car. And as you just saw, I'm a musician. I was grabbing a wrench like that and pushing it. And Harry said to me, Al, don't do that. If the wrench slips, you're going to hit your hand and you're going to hurt your fingers. So to this day, I push a wrench with the palm of my hand, thanks to Harry Anderson. Now, I wasn't born with that common sense about wrenches, even though a lot of people told me, of course you do it that way, after I told them the story. They said, well, yeah, that's the way I was taught. So we have a common knowledge. So forget the term common sense. There's no such thing as a common sense. There is common knowledge, and thank goodness we have old farmers telling new farmers this. That's where they get the common knowledge. So share your knowledge, and that's the barrier that we need to think about. There's also barriers that are really close to the the person, and that's PPE. And boy, we hate that stuff. Oh my goodness. Why would anyone want to wear a respirator? No, we don't, but we must. We must. Those are the kinds of things where you do it because it's the right thing to do. Thank goodness we're wearing masks for COVID. I'm here at the Glen Rose Hospital, and I can tell you there's a whole bunch of people in healthcare that are being super diligent about not spreading COVID to the patients that are here. And they're wearing their mask, and they're wearing it diligently, not some of the time, all the time. So things like PPE, wearing safety glasses, getting used to that's the way we do work. That's the diligence you're going to need. So protect yourself against those things that we can't stop at the energy source, and we can't stop it at the path. We're too close. Every time you use a grinder, you're too close. You can't squint your way through grinding. You must wear the PPE, and don't wear it some of the time, but wear it all the time. Think about that. Jumping out of an airplane. I must do this, and I must stop people who don't do that, and do that in a friendly way. Make sure we're doing it diligently. All right, so think of the energies. Mechanical energy, we have things that are spinning, moving. We have electrical energy, chemical energy. This is all at the farm. Kinetic energy, machinery work, moving around. Lots of potential stored energies, grain bins, thermal energies, things that are hot and cold, and certainly today, just the fact that you have to be outside is a problem. We have acoustic energy, things that vibrate, things that make noise. You need to wear your hearing protection, or one day you won't be able to hear. Radiant energy, not so much on the farm. I don't think we use too many radioactive sources on the farm. There's certainly biological hazards and dangers from animals, and obviously atmospheric, not so much geological in the prairies, but, and no oceans, no oceans. Watch out for the energy. Just like that. Just like that. Watch for the energy. So I challenge you, and we can't really do this very well remotely here, but I challenge you to think about the things that are really dangerous, really high energy at your work, and then really think about which ones you can do something about. What can you make sure that we stop, and continue to do something about these energies? Because if we all get really diligent, we can make these go away. We have in some industries dramatically reduced the top 10 reasons people get hurt. And it's only because we've been diligent. It's only because we've taken the time to think about those. We kill a lot less people in trenches, for example, than we did in the late 70s. We kill a lot less people on our roadways because we trained our flagging people, and we're diligent about the way we work. When I was first trying to do this in 1978, I can tell you when we arrived at a work site on the road, we would not see people in vests. We would not see people in work boots. We would not see people identifying themselves by roadblocks. We were working way too close to traffic, and we killed a lot of people. We killed a lot of people. We injured a lot of people. So we can get better at it. So think of this. Think of those top 5, and maybe make that a goal for your AgSafe process. We're gonna eliminate some of these things because we know how, and we do know how. Jody's telling me that she's sharing information with other safety associations that have been doing this for years. They have some information for us. Listen to that information. Adapt it for your work. So what needs to be managed? I've got some ideas, and I'm not going to go through this in any great detail, I certainly have some articles, and I can share some links with Jody if she wants to, about some things to read about my model. I want to show you a model that many have used to think through this, to get detailed about what you can do next. And now I want to have that conversation about common sense. I truly believe that if anyone believes that they have common sense, it's just simply they forgot who taught them what they know. You know about electric fences. How do you know that? Well, you either learned it yourself by your mistake, or someone told you. You weren't born knowing about electric fences. I can tell you that. So any person who thinks they have such thing as common sense, they're wrong. It's not a superpower. It's not a superpower at all. What you have is common knowledge. And common knowledge, my goodness, what a wonderful thing to have is a group of people talking about things and sharing things. I mean, we've done this since humans first learned to sign language each other. It was the old guy telling the new guy how it went, how it was. And so let's share that knowledge. Let's share that knowledge, and we'll forget about just counting on common sense. Not common sense, we have to do some work. We have to pass that knowledge on to people. So let's develop a common knowledge by talking to each other a lot more than we do. You know, when the government wants you to have a safety meeting, it's not so you can collect a bunch of paper. What they want you to do is talk about the common knowledge. They want you to have a discussion about what do you know about this compared to someone who might just be new at this. Are you talking about the issues? Are you dealing with these issues? Are you attending to the diligence that you need to have? That's a safety meeting, not because you want to fill out a piece of paper and send it somewhere. That's not the purpose of this. These safety meetings and safety committees and safety associations is to share knowledge. So I've got a model. I'm going to spend just a few minutes doing this. I call it the 4 whats and the 4 hows. The 4 whats are pretty simple. What kind of culture is it? What kind of place is it to work here? We got that safety culture that Jody was talking about. Do we have an accountability system? Who's doing what? Are we holding ourselves accountable? Do we have a safe environment? Do we have the right tools and equipment? And do we have safe behaviors? Are we doing the right things? So those are the 4 whats. And then that's not good enough. The 4 hows matter. How we're doing this. Are we encouraging people to do this, our fellow workers? Are we engaging them in the process? Are we talking about these things? Are we evolving over time? Or are we learning? Are we getting better? And are we using our own evidence? Do we see that we're working safer than we were yesterday? And then there's the tools. Right in the middle of this model is something I call the tools. It's the processes. Are you having a safety meeting with the people that are here? Have you got an investigation process? Should you have a failure? Should you almost hurt someone? Do you have a near miss that you need to fix? So when you put that all together, I call it an integrated safety management system. And I've written about this, and there's lots of free articles that you can get to have me explain this in greater detail. But I think for the most part, it's about doing the things that we know will make a difference. Do you have a statement? And it doesn't necessarily have to be too formal. I realize that a lot of farms are small business. I'm part of a small business. I don't have binders and binders full of policies, but I do have some things that I'm committed to. And so that's the company culture on my place of work. I'm not going to do things that are unsafe. I've made that commitment. I'm going to take the time and money to spend to make sure I have the right tools to do my job. I'm going to hold myself accountable for the kinds of activities that have to happen. And I make plans. I got a calendar. I know when I'm going to do certain things and measure that I'm doing them right. And if I don't, I try to fix them. And my safe environment, I absolutely make sure I have the right equipment to do my job. I don't want to hurt myself. I'm a small business. If I hurt myself, I'm out of work. So let's make sure that we use the right materials. We have the right uh, working equipment, that it's not broken, that you're not doing a workaround every day, you haven't got a farm wired together, and making sure that we have the safe behaviors that we need, that we are wearing our PPE, that we are taking the time to put our work boots on properly, and reminding each other that that's important, especially if you're the leader at a farm or a ranch. People are watching you, and if you're not doing what you ask them to do, you've lessened the chance that they're going to do it. And most certainly want to engage people in this process. Safety is not a delivery service. A lot of people, when they do it wrong, they try to deliver safety like a pizza. Here's your safety meeting. I'll give you a form to fill out. And they're not really talking about what does that form do? What are we actually trying to accomplish? So when you're engaging your fellow workers on your ranch or your farm, make sure you're truly engaging them in a conversation. You're not just telling, but you're asking, and you're getting to understand what the common knowledge is. Do they know those things that you're trying to teach them? The only way we're going to know is ask. Don't assume. Don't assume. And over time, as you see your farm get safer, because it will be safer if you do these things, your farm will be a safer place to be. And you will have evolved, and you'll see your own evidence that you'll be able to see it's safer because people will be wearing their PPE, people will be following the rules. And so that really is what I wanted to talk to you about today. Jody, I don't know, have we got a chance to let people ask questions?
We sure do. If you guys want to put them into the Q&A, you can certainly ask.
Is there something I have to do to see that, or can you read them to me?
I can read them to you.
Okay. While we're kind of waiting for that, I can give you some links that if you can, I don't know what your situation is, but you can email them or put them somewhere where people can read a little more about these things.
Certainly, there will be a follow-up email that comes out after we've got the recording posted so that people know where they can refer friends to watch this, and we can include those links in that email.
Good, because there's lots more that we can learn about some of this.
I'm not seeing any questions pop up at this point.
Well, that's good. They're so crystal clear that. Well, I could
I think
tell
you gave them some great information.
Well, I could tell you, and I always see these opportunities as now we're connected. And if I'm an easy guy to find, I'll make sure that's part of the link. And if you have any questions or you want to have a discussion about this, I'm really here to help people. My commitment to this long. I'm not, I'm not a hard guy to get a hold of. You want to have a discussion with me, I love to have that. It's easy enough to email me and set up a time when we can have a discussion. So I'm totally committed to this. I am, as an early adopter of safety back in the 70s, always had a farm safety at the Alberta government. We've always had one. Just because we didn't legislate it didn't mean we weren't concerned about farmers. We've been concerned about farmers for a long time. And I think if we take this opportunity, Jody, you're in a great spot. If you take this opportunity, you're actually going to make a difference in Alberta in a big way. So this is an important opportunity. And I think we just have to make it personal. And as soon as we do that, the energy level is going to go up. And when the energy level goes up, then we stop hurting as many people. And I think that's available to us if we just do it. We just got to do it. Be Nike. Just do it.
Okay, we did have a question come up. It says, what do you recommend to farms where it is a family member who is perhaps doing the unsafe behaviors in front of the employees?
Yeah, that's always a tough one to have hard conversations. And I think the best way, and this has been my experience, the best way is not to do it when it's happening, but to do it when it's not happening, where there's no pressure. Because the last time, the guy has got his hard hat on, you say, "Ah, you haven't got your hard hat on," and now you've created a conflict situation. And we got to hope that you're not going to get hurt while you don't have that hard hat on. But that's not the time to do it. The time to do it is when we don't have any pressure. We're just sitting here having coffee. And we're just saying, hey, do you think it's a good idea not to wear hard hats when we're asking other people to wear hard hats? So do it in a calm time, not when your lock is frozen and you can't get in your car. And someone say, well, you should have a car start. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Or I'm standing on a chair. You go, you're not supposed to stand on a chair. No, that's not the time to do it. Time to do it is in a safety meeting where you can have a conversation about. What do you think it does when we don't demonstrate to our workers that we should do it too? Now you won't always be successful because there are people that are difficult. But I think my experience has been that's the most successful time when you can talk amongst each other and say, yeah, I think I should be doing that. Most people will realize that that's a very poor way I'll give you an example. Um, I live on an acreage. I'm not a farmer by any stretch of imagination, but I have a tractor and I have some things that would equate, a little bit to your work. But I see a grandfather bringing a little grandson on a 4x4 without any helmet on. He's not wearing the helmet. The kid's not wearing the helmet. And what do I do about that? Well, I could walk up to him and create a conflict situation, or try to get him in a calm time and say, I saw you driving. What do you think that does with your grandson? What do you think what's the message you're sending? That's a good way to drive a quad without a helmet. Are you going to be responsible one day when the thing tips over and your grandson gets hurt and he hasn't got a helmet on? Why? Well, granddad never wore it. Is that where you want to be? So you can appeal to the emotion, but try to do it in a calm time. That's the best way. And I know of what you speak. The old guy who's got some, because I'm an old guy. I got some habits. And if you get me in a calm time, it's a lot better than if you get me in that rush, where I got to get it done. So that would be my advice. Pick a calm time.
Okay, this one's kind of related. Any suggestions on engaging people who are reluctant to grab onto safety, and how do you change their attitudes towards it?
Well, yeah, and again, I think it fits in. You're right; they're related. I don't think you could change attitudes very well. Um, my dad's 94. He's in a care home, and the only way we can see each other is through Zoom and FaceTime. And yesterday he offered to pay for my haircut. Now I've been struggling with hair and my dad in conversation since I was 14 years old, and he's always had a different attitude towards hair than I have, as you can see. And he's tried to change my attitude among about my hair, and I think you can see he hasn't been very successful. And I think it's hard to change people's attitude, but it's easier to change their behavior. And we don't have to love our PPE, but we have to make commitments to it. So if you have to do that by saying, well, look, we're going to comply with the government and fair ball, they have rules and we must comply. It's not a choice we have. If they tell us we have to wear head protection, for example, we have to wear head protection and you are violating the law if you don't. Now, we can be that kind of employer that's sneaking around and breaking the law, or we can commit to being one that will always comply with the law. And if you look at successful companies that are safe, they all have a policy that says, we are not crossing this line. So you got to get there. You can't decide to be legal in Canada. It makes you a criminal. Now, We don't want to run a business, a criminal enterprise. So you have to wear this stuff. So having those hard conversations with people who are hard to get to, we're just going to have them. And they're going to have to comply. And they have choices. We all have choices. If you want to work here, this is what we do. And it's going to be a tough one, but you're going to have those hard conversations and make those commitments. And it's not easy. It hasn't been easy for any other industry, but you're going to have to struggle through it. And once you make that commitment, then be proud of that commitment and reassure each other that it is the right thing to do. I'm not suggesting that this is easy work, but it's necessary work. And it is hard to get the hardliners, the ones that are stuck. Well, it's time not to get stuck anymore. It's time, and we're doing it for the right reasons. And if you have to, maybe you have to move on. Maybe you have to get someone else to work here. That's always available to you.
Okay, that's a great answer. And I think we've answered all the questions that have come in. So I just wanted to say thank you, Alan, for your presentation today. And to everybody who attended, this was the second of our webinar series. There is another webinar coming up on March 9th. When we'll do part 3 with our speaker, Reg Stewart, who will talk about regulation and culture and putting those boots on the ground on a farm. So he's from AgSafe BC and has a lot of great experience to share with us. When you leave today, the survey will pop up asking you a few questions. Please take a minute to answer those and help us put on more of these webinars to support you guys in growing your culture. And if you have not done so already, check out our website and all of the tools that are available to you there, www.agsafeab.ca, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have about safety. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks, Jody, for having me. It was my pleasure.